Every day I have to work from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Morning, boss.
What time is it already? Do you have enough time to set your tables? The lunch crowd is coming.
Yes, it's only 11 a.m.
No, it's 11:50.
Wait, that's not working. So what time is it really? 11:45, 11:50. They're all showing different timings. All these watches and gadgets, they all confuse me. So what do you use to tell time?
Well, then how can we tell time accurately?
How do we know what time it really is? In science, time means the steady flow of events from the past and into the future. People have measured time in lots of ways. Long ago, we used the sun and the moon, and sundials and water clocks. Later, we made mechanical clocks with gears and springs. And today, we have smartwatches and digital clocks. But how do we tell the exact time? Since the 1960s, time has been officially determined using atomic clocks and the quantum characteristics of atoms. All atoms vibrate at specific and regular frequencies that are unique to the element. Since they're very stable and predictable, scientists can use their frequency to measure time very, very accurately. Scientists chose the atom cesium-133, which vibrates exactly 9,192,631,770 Hz. So, being able to measure this unchangeable frequency in a particular atom offers science a universal, standardized measurement of time. Alright, time for lunch.
Wow, the crowd is really coming in.
Oh, it's time to get busy.
Wow, giving the lecture sure has me hungry. Should I have the pizza or the croissant? Pizza or croissant? Oh, maybe for a side of over easy eggs?
Busy day today?
Yeah, look at my boss. She has so many things to do. She must be so busy. But for me, it's going to be a long day ahead. All I have to do is to take orders, clean, and serve the tables.
So she has fewer duties and feels like time is passing slowly. This reminds me of something called time perception. Let me make a short video on it. Let me ask you all a question. When does time feel like it's going by faster? When you're sitting in class? Or when you're hanging out with your friends? Most of you will probably choose with your friends. And I agree. When we're having fun, time seems to speed by in a blink of an eye. As the saying goes, time flies when you're having fun. But recent research suggests something quite interesting. Time flies when you're having motivated fun. When we are motivated to do something, we focus our attention on only that thing, shutting out irrelevant thoughts and processes, creating this feeling that time flew by. It's not magic. Your brain actually has different systems to keep track of time. These systems work together to figure out when things happen and how long they last. We use clues from the world around us, like daylight, sounds, or even your body's own clocks, the circadian rhythm. However, while our bodies are extremely good at tracking certain periods, such as 24 hours, our brain's perception of time at the level of seconds or minutes can be tricked. A well-known effect is called chronostasis, the stopping of time. Our eyes make small movements to focus on new objects in the environment. However, the blur as our eyes move are incomprehensible to the brain itself, And so the brain fills in the transition with images of the new scene, creating the illusion that the new scene lasts longer than it actually does. One common example is the so-called stopped clock illusion. Another illusion is called the kappa effect. Our brain uses how far apart things are in space to guess how much time passes between them. So if two things happen far apart in space, your brain thinks more time passed than if they were close together. Your brain also pays more attention to weird stuff. This is called the oddball effect. Strange or unusual events grab our attention, making time feel slower. All of this shows that how we feel time passing depends a lot on our brains, our bodies, and even our surroundings. When we are taken out of our normal routines, our sense of time can get really, really strange. For example, a scientist named Michel Siffre did an experiment where he lived in a cave for months with no sunlight or clocks. After a while, he lost track of the normal day-night cycle. He started staying awake for 36 hours and then sleeping for 12, almost like he was living on a 48-hour day. This helped a lot of scientists learn more about how our bodies keep track of time, a field now called chronobiology. So, even though it seems simple to see time, it actually takes a lot of biology, physics, and psychology working together for us to sense time somewhat regularly. Let's try a quick experiment. I have a timer here. In a second, we will play a beep indicating the start of the timer. Your job is to start counting from 1 to 15 in your mind and observe if you were faster, slower, or in sync with the timer. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Were you in sync with the timer? Our brain time dances around, speeding up or slowing down based on what's grabbing our attention or tugging at our feelings. We know this because we have clocks. They seem to tick at pretty consistent rates. Remember, our brains don't count perfectly. Instead, they pay attention to what we're doing and how we feel. Wow, the place is really filling up. Wait a minute, didn't that customer come later than me? How did they get their food before me? It's been 15 minutes.
Oh, hi sir.
Hi, sorry, can I check on the status of my food? This person came later than me and yet their food already arrived.
Ah, you ordered the pizza with 2 side eggs, right? Okay, that will take about 20 minutes to prepare. But don't worry, okay, I'll check with the kitchen on the status of your food.
Okay, thank you. In a parallel universe, I could have eaten earlier. Well, since we have time, are there parallel universes? Maybe. Let's explore why some scientists think so. We often think of time as a straight road, stretching towards the future and backwards to the past. But what if that road isn't straight? What if it's more like a tree, branching into different forks? That's an idea inspired by quantum mechanics. One famous quantum mechanics experiment is called the double slit experiment, first performed by Thomas Young in 1801. Pointing a laser at 2 slits with a screen at the other end, one could see that light behaves like a wave. It seems to go through both slits and interfere with itself, causing interference patterns, which you can see in the video. But there's more. Scientists later discovered that light is also made of tiny particles called photons. If you fire a single photon at the slits, you'll find dots forming on the screen one at a time. Eventually, the dots will fill up exactly the interference patterns like a wave. It's as if each tiny particle is somehow going through both slits and behaving like a wave at the same time. But that doesn't make intuitive sense. How can one photon be in two places? In our original case, the light had to go through two slits to see the interference patterns. Likewise, here, the only way that the dots would look like interference patterns mathematically is if the dot somehow went through both slits at the same time as well. But the particle must either go through the left slit or the right slit, right? Now why don't we just measure it? That's the weirdest part. When you measure whether the photon went through the left or the right slits, the wave pattern disappears. Now the photon behaves like a regular particle. It only goes through one slit, and there's no more interference pattern anymore. So before you checked and measured, the photons seem to be in a superposition, going through both slits at once. But when you measured, the superposition collapsed, so to speak, and it chose a single path instead. This is what is called the measurement problem in quantum physics. Why does observing something seem to change what it does? In another famous thought experiment proposed by Erwin Schrödinger, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, known as Schrödinger's cat, imagine a closed box. Inside is a delicate statue of a cat with a tiny, unstable atom. If the atom decays, it releases energy and breaks the statue. According to quantum physics, until you open the box, the atom is in a superposition as well, both decayed and not decayed at the same time. So the cat statue is also in a superposition, both broken and not broken at the same time. Only when you look does it become one or the other. In other words, only then does it collapse. So why does looking or measuring change things? One explanation is called the many worlds interpretation, suggested by Hugh Everett III. It says, the cat statue doesn't pick one outcome. Instead, the universe splits when you measure it, and all outcomes happen. In one version, the statue is broken, in another, it's still whole. Both are real according to this interpretation, but in separate branches of reality. Every time a quantum collapse happens, for example, if I did a quantum coin flip to decide which dish I ordered, all outcomes happen, but the universe branches. One version of me gets the pizza, another version of me gets the croissant. From inside your own branch, it still feels like a single timeline. You can't send messages to the other you who saw something different, but the many worlds view says that they're out there, walking their own path. It sounds like science fiction, but it's a serious idea that some physicists believe might be true. We may never be able to test this branching multiverse directly, but just thinking about it challenges what we mean by existence and whether time is just one single road after all. Finally. Oh, I'm so hungry. Oh, now that I think of it, maybe 2 eggs is too unhealthy? Could I possibly ask for 1 egg instead? No. Once an egg cracks open, it can't be uncracked, right? Maybe just one short video before I dig in. Can you uncrack an egg? Once an egg is cracked, it doesn't go back together, right? We talked about time as a road, but does it have a direction? Or can we turn around and walk back from where we came? Why does time seem to only go in one way? Imagine holding a balloon full of air. You let it go, and it zooms around the room as the air rushes out quickly. But now here's the weird part. Why don't we ever see all the air molecules gather themselves up and float back into the balloon? The laws of physics say it's not impossible. In fact, if you could perfectly rewind every single air molecule, they could go back into the balloon. And this is allowed by the laws of physics, by a feature called time reversal symmetry. the basic laws of motion work the same way forward and backward in time. Just take a look at this rope over here. If I were to fold it into half and cut it into half, it becomes two ropes and can never be restored, right? Well, maybe it can. But of course, we know that this is just a magic trick. So why don't we ever see things unhappen in real life? Here's where entropy comes in. Entropy is like a measure of messiness, of how many ways tiny things like air molecules can be arranged. For example, when the air is inside the balloon, there are only a few ways all the molecules can fly around in the balloon relative to the size and volume of the balloon. But once you poke a hole into the balloon, there are many more possible ways for the molecules to be flying around the room now. So the state of the air, once it spreads out throughout the room, has much higher entropy than when it was inside the balloon. The second law of thermodynamics says that, over time, things are more likely to go from less messy, low entropy, to more messy, high entropy. So even though the laws of physics allow the air to go back into the balloon, the chances of that happening randomly are so tiny, it basically never happens. That's what gives us the error of time. The observation that time moves forward. Now here's a cool idea from a mathematician named Henri Poincaré. He proved that if you waited long enough, like really long, the air might eventually return to a state close to where it started. This is called Poincaré recurrence. But for something like a balloon with billions of particles, it would take longer than the lifetime of the universe for this to happen. So, in conclusion, physics doesn't really care which direction of time moves at the fundamental level. Time appears to us to move in one direction because systems almost always go from states with fewer possible microscopic arrangement, i.e. low entropy, to states with more. And that's what we call increasing entropy. That's why eggs don't uncrack, balloons don't refill themselves, and why we can't walk backwards on the road of time. Alright, it's time to eat. Wait a minute, I don't have any cutlery. Hi, sorry, can I have cutlery?
Sorry, here you go.
Thank you.
I always forget the cutlery. Maybe I should write a note to myself. That note earlier, I wonder... Wow, the crowd is really coming.